Parameters in Looker Studio. Super user-friendly, super important, but not the easiest to get working. Let's show you how. What's going on, everybody? I'm Jack Tompkins with Pineapple Consulting Firm, always trying to help the small business world become more data-driven. We've done a lot in Looker Studio. We've got a whole course, we've got multiple courses out there in Looker Studio, and this is an example of one of the courses that we put out there. So this is a specific deep dive into parameters within Looker Studio. Parameters themselves are a really cool user input capability that Looker Studio and many other dashboard platforms have. And it's something that's not 100% intuitive, and there are some nooks and crannies it could fall into. So we dive deep into the course version of this, and the course is available below at the link below. There are 2 courses linked below. This is a snippet from the advanced one. So please watch, enjoy. Feel free to reach out if you have questions, want support, or want any more info on the course. Welcome to Parameters. So this is where we allow the users to make an input and it influences the dashboard. So we are jumping right in. No intro needed here from me. Let's just jump right into the dashboard. So use cases for something like this. Let's say somebody's used to Excel, right? And you could say that everything is linked to a specific cell. So by changing one cell, the rest of the dashboard changes, the rest of the calculation changes, right? As you know, that's not really an option in dashboards, right? So taking this times this is a complete different back-end calculation than something like an Excel or Google Sheets, right? You can't just do that in a dashboard. So a lot of users are used to that ability though. So that's why we introduced parameters. Let's say that our net sales of 156K in this example, let's say that we want to take 20% of that, and we know that that is going to be our cost of goods sold. If you're not familiar with financials, it's the cost to make the thing before you sell the thing, right? So let's say we want our cost of goods sold as an important metric here, and we know that it's about 20%. So we just want a rough estimate of that, right? So what we're going to do here is I'm actually going to make a little bit of space. So I'm going to click, highlight all of these, drag them kind of off to the corner here. AOV, you're coming with them as well. And then I'm going to shrink these up just a little bit so we have room for our parameter. And then I'm actually going to bring this title down. So the reason I'm going through all this is because there's some functionality benefits of doing this, and this is one of them. So if you go down on the arrow keys, it's kind of a big jump, right? If you go hold shift and press down, it goes 1 pixel at a time. So important kind of little tip and trick, but very, very helpful. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make a parameter. We know that most of our data comes from the orders table. So we're gonna go into the orders table. You'll see add a parameter there, right? Before we do though, in master data, if you check that out, we don't have add a field, we don't have add a parameter. So this has to be done in non-blended data, and then the result can be brought into blended data. So within orders, we're gonna drop that down. We're gonna create a parameter. We're gonna call this cost of goods sold, or COGS, percent. Now you can see the reason I do this is because this gets mad at you. Parameter ID, it seems like it was creating it on its own, right? It was creating it on its own, but we can just go in there and edit it ourselves too. So we just back out of it. Who cares what the ID is? We don't really see that. That's a true back-end thing that even the dashboard developer doesn't really see. So our COGS percent, let's make it a number as a decimal. And we're going to allow any value. You could do a range of values if you wanted to limit that. You could input specific values here, but for now we're just going to allow any value. And the default is going to be 0.2, or excuse me, we're going to put 20 because we want 20%. We can't input this to be in percent format. So what we're going to do is title the name to have a percent in it. People will input 20, implying 20%, and then we can handle that in the calculations in the back end. So let's save that. Great. It's going to refresh and say, all right, who's getting impacted by that? And now we are going to create something that is a calculated field. It's just a regular calculated field. And we're going to say cost of goods sold, or COGS, dollars. So this is going to be net sales, right? As we start typing, it fills in for us. I'm going to do times our COGS percent. This purpley pink, whatever you want to call it, is the symbol for parameter, which is great. That's a distinctive color. And since we did that as sort of a whole number, right? 20 is the input, but 20% is what we want. We're just going to divide by 100. So now this is going to say our net sales of 156 times 20% is going to be whatever that is, about 30 grand, 40 grand, around there. So let's save that. And now we're going to go into, I'm going to scroll down here into master data. We're going to make sure that that COGS dollars comes through here. So there it is. It's in our orders table. Let's click and drag it into our orders of the blended data, the master data. I'll hit save. It'll think about things. And now we're just going to do sort of an ugly version of this. Control C, Control V. And drag this over here just to squeeze it in enough for visualization purposes that it is calculated correctly. So instead of net sales, we want COGS dollars. Now 31K, perfect. So we can go in there and the orders table, we can default this to a currency. We can of course default it to a currency here as well. And it naturally is also up about 42% since it's just a straight multiple. And that's great that we have the visual now, but what about a user who wants to make that change? And they want to say, no, this month is going to be 25%. That makes more sense. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go back into our orders, this COGS percent, we're going to click and drag. So it'll start off in this massive situation here. There are some stylistic things that you can do. You can auto fit the width. You can make it a drop down instead. You can make it a fixed size. I always like a fixed size here. You can make it so that it's in line with the other filter colors here. So I'm going to do that. So we've got our sort of a light blue situation. There's not a whole lot that we can do, but we do have some options. We can make the label off to the left, something like that. I think this is actually going to fit better with our format, so I'm going to keep it this way. Now what I'm going to do is just click and drag over here. You can resize it appropriately and all that good stuff. We're going to make sure that the distance is the same. And there we go, almost. There we go, okay. That's the same height. So now when we go here, let's change this from 20. Let's just do a significant change. Let's go up to 50. I'm going to hit enter. And now that number should change. Perfect. So 78 is 50% of 156. That looks good to me. So that is our parameter. The other version of that we're actually going to get into in the next section, and it involves a calculated field with a case statement and all that good stuff. So we're going to get into a different parameter in the next section, but that's how parameters work. That's their use case. If you want the user to change or have the ability to change some numbers in here, it's always valuable to have a user input like this. And you can default it to a specific value. This default value actually works less often than the other one. So I encourage you to do it in the actual calculation of the creation of the parameter itself. And whenever you open the dashboard, it'll default to that. So if it's a consistent thing where a client keeps coming back and says, hey, I change it to 25 every time I open it, can we just default it to 25? Yes, of course you can, but it still allows for that flexibility. So that is the crash course on parameters.